Room 307. Chapter 7. The Floor That Shouldn't Exist. 3:11 a.m. The brass key seemed heavier than it had any right to be. Ethan turned it over slowly between his fingers, studying every scratch and worn edge beneath the warm light spilling from the lift. It looked older than every other key he had seen in Alder House Hotel, as though it had passed through hundreds of hands over many decades. The engraved numbers had been polished smooth by time, yet they remained unmistakable. Nobody reached for it. Nobody even suggested taking it. For several long moments, the group simply stared, waiting for somebody else to decide what happened next. It was Margaret who finally spoke. "Put it back." Her voice was calm but unusually firm. Ethan looked towards her. "Why?" "I don't know." "You've said that a few times tonight." "I know." She folded her arms tightly across herself. "But every time I ignore that feeling." She glanced toward the staircase. "However, something worse happens." Nobody argued with her. Not because they believed she possessed some supernatural instinct, but because everyone had begun trusting the strange unease that had settled over the hotel. Logic had carried them only so far. Every sensible explanation they had offered had quietly fallen apart. Liam cleared his throat. "So, are we really standing here arguing with a key?" "It isn't the key that's bothering us," Sophie replied. "It's what it belongs to." Ethan looked towards the receptionist. "You've recognized it." The receptionist nodded. "Yes. You've seen it before." "I have." "Then whose room is it?" A shadow crossed the receptionist's face. "I don't know." "You've just admitted you've seen the key." "I have." "And you don't know whose room it opens?" "No." Ethan frowned. "That doesn't make any sense." The receptionist offered a tired smile. "It used to." The lobby fell quiet once more. The fire continued burning softly in the grate, casting gentle orange light across polished wooden floors that looked exactly as they had earlier that evening. The scent of burning oak still drifted lazily through the room, and somewhere in the distance an old pipe creaked within the walls. Nothing about the hotel looked abandoned. Nothing looked haunted. It was simply wrong. Ethan realized that was what disturbed him most. If the building had been decaying, if lights had flickered violently, or furniture had begun moving by itself, then at least his mind could categorize the experience as impossible. Instead, Alder House behaved almost politely. It invited ordinary people to explain away extraordinary things until there were no explanations left. His thoughts drifted back to the history folder inside room 214. Eleanor Alder, the woman who had built the hotel. He suddenly realized he knew almost nothing about her beyond the brief paragraph he had skimmed after dinner. "What happened to Eleanor Alder?" he asked. The receptionist looked genuinely surprised. "Why are you asking about her?" "Because her name keeps appearing." "It doesn't. The history folder. Every hotel has one." "I know. But yours felt important." The receptionist considered him for several seconds before replying. "Mrs. Alder died here." Margaret's eyes narrowed slightly. "In the hotel?" "Yes." "Natural causes." "I honestly couldn't tell you." "You don't know?" "I wasn't alive." A faint smile appeared on Liam's face. "Well, that's the first normal answer we've had all night." Nobody laughed. Daniel wandered back towards the guest register. He looked down at the page Ethan had been studying only minutes earlier. "The writing's gone." Everyone turned. The words beside room 307 had vanished. The page now listed only a room number. No reservation, no warning, nothing. Ethan stepped beside him. He knew exactly where the sentence had been. The paper was perfectly clean. He gently brushed his fingertips across it. Dry. There wasn't the slightest trace of fresh ink. Sophie leaned over his shoulder. "Could we have imagined it?" "No." Margaret answered before Ethan could. "I saw it too." "So did I," Liam added. Daniel looked towards the receptionist. "You saw it." The receptionist slowly nodded. "I did." "So where's it gone?" "I don't know." This time, everyone believed him. A sharp chime echoed through the lobby. The lift. Again. The doors slid open behind them with their usual smooth precision. Nobody had pressed the button. Nobody had moved. For a brief moment, the lift stood empty exactly as before. Then something caught Ethan's attention. The illuminated floor indicator above the doors no longer displayed a number. Instead, it displayed a single word. Third. Liam frowned. Has it always done that? No. I don't think lifts can do that. They can't, Ethan replied. The word remained illuminated for several seconds before changing back to the familiar numeral. The doors began closing once again. Just before they met, a hand appeared between them, not reaching out, not grabbing, simply resting there. The safety sensors immediately forced the doors apart. Everyone instinctively stepped backwards. The lift stood empty. There was no hand. Nothing blocked the doors, yet they remained open. Daniel stared into the cabin. I definitely saw. So did I, Chloe whispered. I thought. He stopped. He wasn't sure what he had thought. The lift remained perfectly still. Its warm ceiling lights reflected from polished brass. Completely empty. The doors finally closed of their own accord. Nobody suggested stepping inside. We need to see the third floor. The words escaped Ethan almost before he realized he had spoken them. Chloe looked horrified. Have you gone mad? Maybe. I'm serious. So am I. Sophie looked thoughtfully towards the staircase. If room 307 exists, we need to know where. Margaret slowly shook her head. No. Everyone turned towards her. It wants us to. Silence followed. What do you mean? Ethan asked gently. She struggled to explain. I can't prove it. You don't need to. It feels like, she searched for the right words, every strange thing that's happened tonight has pushed us a little closer towards that room. Nobody interrupted. The alert mentioned it. She looked at Ethan. The phone call mentioned it. She looked towards the key. Now the hotel has given us the key. She took a slow breath. What if that isn't coincidence? The question lingered heavily in the air. For the first time that night, Ethan considered the possibility that they hadn't been discovering clues at all. Perhaps they had been following instructions. The receptionist quietly lowered his eyes. You've understood more quickly than most. Every face turned towards him. What does that mean? Sophie asked. The receptionist looked toward the staircase leading to the upper floors. His voice was barely louder than the crackling fire. It means... He hesitated as though choosing his next words with extraordinary care. That nobody ever finds room 307. Another pause followed. Then he looked directly at Ethan. It finds them.